So you've probably heard the term hire slow, fire fast. And it is really good advice, but there's a caveat. So what we're talking about here is culture. So the idea is that you want to hire slow so that you make sure you've got the right person who is going to fit with your business and aren't just going to quit, because that's expensive. When you hire someone, you go through all the training, the onboarding, and the mental headache as well of it. And then if you have someone who you think is great and then they leave or they're not a good fit for the team or whatever, and you've wasted all that time and money and have to do it again. So that's why you want to hire slow to make sure you've got the right person. And the idea of fire fast is to get rid of someone as quick as possible if they're not going to be a good fit for the team, because someone who is a bad apple or just not a good culture fit can damage the culture so quickly and infect the rest of the team. You want to make sure you get them out as quick as possible. But here's the caveat. You kind of have to sometimes fire slow as well. And the reason being is you don't want to end up in fair work or, in court for unfair dismissal. And so I learned a lot about this when I was at BHP. We'd be having ER, always employee relations, come in and talk to our leaders about how to performance manage someone properly. And if you do need to get rid of them, the things you need to do in the business to make sure that you're covered. Now, disclaimer, I'm not a employment relations specialist. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not involved with fair work. So if you are in a situation where you have someone that you want to move out of your team, please do engage a HR professional or an employment lawyer and make sure that you're doing it properly in a way that isn't going to come back to bite you in the butt. But what I can do from a leadership perspective is teach you some of the things that you should be doing as a leader, no matter what situation you have with your people from the beginning. And you do this with all of your people, whether they are, great culture fits or bad apples that you want to move on. So here are the things that you want to be doing from the beginning. One thing is setting expectations. So the first thing that you want to do is let people know what you expect of them. And this is so common and so simple that I think some people do it accidentally and other people don't even realize that it should be done, because especially when you're hiring people for the first time, you don't realize that the things you take for granted in your head, that you know how things should be done, because that's just obviously common sense, right? It's not the same in everyone else's head. So as a leader, one of the first things you need to learn to do is to get what is in your head out into the realm of your people so they understand what you want. And that's called setting expectations. So you do that by when you onboard someone, when you bring them into the team. Hey, this is how we roll here. These are our values. This is what good behavior looks like. This is how we treat each other, respect and things like that. It may seem obvious, but if you don't set those expectations, you can't then come back and say, hey, you're doing it wrong, because you haven't told them what you expect. So number one, set expectations. If you haven't done that at the start of employment, there is no bad time to do it. One, we say to reset expectations regularly anyway. So maybe at performance time, once a year, do a team offsite or something like that, and you can reset expectations. But even in a simple one-on-one conversation, next time you have a chat with the team, you could be like, hey, look, guys, this is on me. I didn't realize I had to do this at the start. I'm doing it now. Here's the expectations of how we roll in this office. This is how, I expect everyone to behave in here. You can follow it up with a quick little email and say, hey, this is what we spoke about today. And that email is important because that brings me on to my next point. After you've set expectations, the things that you want to do, and this is super helpful if you do need to eventually go down the path of getting rid of someone, is you need to keep records and keep notes. And this doesn't mean you need to have like documents and files and all this stuff of people. It's literally as simple as what we used to call a diary note. So this is something that you can keep track of. And what it is the facts of things that happen. So there's no emotions in it. It's not like so and so is a dick, or I can't believe they're treating us with such disrespect. It's he said this to her, right? Simple, factual, like that. You want to take those notes, and you also want to make sure that you capture the good things. This is why I'm saying you do this on a regular basis from the start, no matter who your employees are, because you want to capture the good, positive things people do as well in terms of, using that for performance management. Now, how we keep these records, it could be as simple as you've got paper diary and you write some notes in there. You want to make sure that can't be taken, captured by someone else. Or you can have a file on your computer using like OneNote or just a Word document or something, or an Excel where you've got a tab for each person and you just track the notes and the dates there. You could email yourself the note because it's got the timestamp on it and have a folder for each different person. The reason, and you've got to do this confidentially, it's not something that you share with other people, but that's the other reason why we keep it very factual, so that we don't put emotions and judgments and assumptions in there, because that can't be, if it comes down to the point of an unfair dismissal potentially, um, you've then got this evidence of the work that you've done to try and help this person and to set the expectations and to let them know what they need to do or how they're achieving. Had a conversation on this date, we said this. Um, it's got all that evidence there so that you can demonstrate that you have gone through a due process to give this person every opportunity to improve, and they still haven't, and that's why you're getting rid of them. The other reason that you would be setting expectations and your values and your behaviors and what we expect is that's how you can use that as performance management. And so if someone is doing something that goes against the values of the business that you've set, you can use that in performance by saying, hey, you're not achieving the agreements that we have about this is how we behave. How do you think you can improve? What can we do better? And having that conversation is another thing that you would document and is another way to show that you're going through a due process to help them improve. Because again, not a lawyer, and pretty sure you can't just fire people and say, hey, you're fired, like they do on TV. Because they will just go to Fair Work and say I was unfairly dismissed, and then you need to prove that you've actually given them a chance to improve, which is really, really particular in the big companies like where I used to work at BHP, because Australia's largest employer, they're under the microscope of making sure everything is literally done to a T. But even in a small business, you'd think you can get away with some things, but the law is still there on the employee side if something does go wrong. So you've got to make sure that you're doing the things to protect yourself. Like I said, go see a HR professional if you're actually dealing with a situation. But I'm just giving you like the behavioral things. And the other thing that I wanted to share, yeah, there's three more things. One is you got to be consistent across the team. So I've said in the past how we don't treat everyone equally, and that's okay. What I am talking about there is motivations and how people want to work and communication styles. Like that needs to be tweaked for each individual. You got to know your people and know what they prefer. But the one thing that you do need to treat everyone equally on and be consistent with is performance management. So if someone does, if someone is rude to a staff member and you give them a written warning, someone else is rude to a staff member, you've got to give them a written warning too. Like it's got to be consistent across the board. You can't like chop and change based on how you feel or something like that. Maybe it could be the severity. Again, not a lawyer, I can't give you that legal advice. The other thing is when you're having conversations with people, instead of just, and I'll do a whole nother video on this about how to have a really good empathetic conversation, but rather than saying, hey, you're not meeting expectations, this is what's wrong, you can sit down with someone and say, help me understand what's going on for you. How can I help you? And really try to seek to understand and get to the bottom of why they're doing the things they're doing, because maybe it's something that can be resolved easily rather than just making assumptions about why they're doing it and like trying to like back and get rid of them. But the last thing I will say, this is probably like the thing I should have started with, that's going to be helpful, is you've got a probation period. It's there for a reason. So when you bring new people on board, put them on probation, 3 months, 6 months, whatever you think is fair, and make sure that it isn't just a tick and flick exercise. You're actually really getting to know if this person is a good fit for the culture. Because within that probation period, you have a lot more leniency to be able to say, I'm really sorry, you're not a good fit. Tomorrow's going to be your last day. Right? You can do that, and they can do the same for you as well. And so you've got to put that effort in that first probation period to make sure they are going to be a fit. Set the expectations, have a performance conversation, have a seek to understand conversation, figure out if they're going to be a good match for the team, and don't leave it too late. Because if you go past that probation period and then you have to do all these performance management things to demonstrate that, the reason you want to get rid of them. So anyway, that's the idea of hire slow, fire fast. But I would say if you do need to fire fast, do it the right way. Follow that due process and don't be so hasty in firing that you accidentally, land in hot water with Fair Work because you haven't followed due process. So again, not a lawyer, not giving legal advice. Definitely get some employment advice from an employee relations specialist. If you've got someone that you can speak to, if you want to understand how to have these conversations, how to set expectations, how to engage and build a relationship with your people, that's the kind of thing that my videos are going to help you with. If that's helpful, share with someone who you think needs this information, and we'll see you next time. Bye.